Hey, brothers and sisters from the StarkNet ecosystem. Welcome back to the Stark Cafe. This is Nurstar speaking, your personal Stark barista. And once again, we are ready to delight you with some very special StarkNet content. Happy Monday, my dear friends. I hope you're all starting your week in the best way possible. And in order to help you out with that, today we're hosting a top-class infrastructure project that I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about in the last 6 months or so. We're talking about none other than the Kakarot zkEVM, a Cairo-written Ethereum virtual machine that will help StarkNet achieve full EVM compatibility, a crucial aspect that will allow Solidity native projects and developers to deploy their existing code base on StarkNet without having to turn it into Cairo from scratch and therefore perform expensive additional audits as a result. Furthermore, we'll also discover the important role that Kakarot could play in the fractal scaling theory in collaboration with the Rust-written, Rust-powered Madara StarkNet sequencer. With that being said, let's introduce our guest, Elias, co-founder and CEO of Kakarot Labs, and he's been very active on StarkNet since the early days as a contributor to many open source projects on StarkNet, coordinated by OnlyDust, a platform for open source contribution. But right now, it's finally time to welcome him to the Stark Cafe. Hey, Elias, how is it going?
Hey, Nostar, I'm good, and you? Thanks
I'm
for having
great,
me.
thanks. Thanks a lot. And even greater by having you here at the Stark Cafe. It was a while I wanted to invite you over. So we finally made it, and I'm very glad for that. Thanks a lot for your availability, and really looking forward to this session together.
Nice, thanks.
Cool. Elias, well, let's start with an icebreaker about the history of Kakarot, of the Kakarot zkEVM. Could you do for us a brief history class about the Kakarot zkEVM since its inception in Q4 2022? What was the vision Kakarot was born for, and which were the milestones that this ambitious project managed to achieve during its very early stages?
So I guess Kakarot was born out of like a research idea that was aimed at showing the power of the Cairo VM. It was in July 2022 when Shahar Papini, the co-inventor of Cairo, wanted to build a zkEVM using Cairo. Because essentially, a zkEVM, it's at its core, it's simply an EVM, so an Ethereum virtual machine. The runtime for Ethereum smart contracts is just an EVM where you can prove every transaction. So for scalability purposes and privacy purposes, it's just an EVM where you can prove transactions. So Shah said, well, since we built Cairo, the provable language, surely we should be able to build a provable EVM with it. So it was just a moonshot like that. He just tweeted about it. And then later on, Abdel, the lead exploration team of Starkware and StarkNet, decided to bootstrap the project and see if it was really possible. So we met with the whole core team in October 2022 in StarkNet City, Lisbon, where we were living in a hacker house, and we joined together Kakarot. So this is how kind of we met. Some people were OGs in the StarkNet ecosystem, some people were new, and we all lived together for a week in Lisbon and hacked at Kakarot.
Yeah, that's very good. I remember like that time in Lisbon because I was there as well during the Lisbon CC, and I also dropped on a couple of times at the hacker house, and there was a very good vibe. I recollect that, and you know, thanks a lot for this brief history class about the origins of the Kakarot zkEVM, and you know, at the end of the previous month. Of the last month, you wrote a very interesting article about the Kakarot roadmap, and I'd like us to break it down in the next couple of questions. So first of all, you divided such a roadmap in 3 phases. In the first phase, which is called, the first phase is called bringing the EVM to StarkNet. Then, you know, I suppose consists of many of the things you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. And however, could you elaborate a bit more on this first phase? And we're also curious to know if this phase is almost over or if there's still a lot to be done on it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this phase is almost over. We're gonna release a testnet, a public testnet for end of August, targeted for end of August. And yeah, this phase is essentially us packaging our code, so our EVM, inside a smart contract and deploy it on Starknet. And what that contract will allow anyone to do is write Solidity smart contracts or any EVM smart contracts and compile them as they would anytime, on any EVM chain, and deploy it on Starknet through Kakarot. So what that means, and then interact with it with their usual tooling. So what it means is you're going to be able to kind of interact with Starknet as if it was an EVM chain. That's kind of our first product. That's why we said bring the EVM to Starknet. Because essentially you have like 2 or 3 entry points, which is deploy a contract, interact with a contract, or like call a contract. And you're going to be able to do all those things on Starknet in an EVM compatible way.
I see. Well understood. And so we can consider. You were saying that we can consider the first phase almost over. Maybe we'll end with the launch of the testnet, right? I've heard that there could be a testnet launch in August. So yeah, having said that, let's move on the next 2 phases, which are both massively influenced by another entity, another infrastructure tool, which is the Rust-powered Madara Starknet sequencer. And could you tell us what kind of relationship Kakarot and Madara are going to build in the coming months? And what does the second phase, named L3 zkEVMs, consist of?
Yeah, so currently Madara and Kakarot are like allied teams. We are building together. So Abdel started Kakarot and now he's working on Madara, and we're working on Kakarot, but we're also core maintainers of Madara. So Harsh was here, but also Griged, Johan, Clément all worked on Madara, and we're looking to make Madara one of the like cornerstones of our stack. Because when we launch our L3 vision, we're gonna need a full node, and we're probably gonna use Madara as our full node, and our software as a EVM runtime. Like I would say that Kakarot will be the engine, and then Madara will be the whole car around the engine.
I see. Very good. And lastly, we got the third phase of this exciting roadmap, which is the goal of turning Kakarot into a Type 1 zkEVM. And could you tell us about it, and how long do you think it will take to achieve such an ambitious goal? And obviously, if you want, you can also give us an overview on the different types of zkEVMs.
Yeah, so essentially, there are 4 types of zkEVM, and the most important ones are Type 2 and Type 1. The Type 2 is the type every layer 2 zkEVM is trying to converge to, because it's the type of zkEVM where essentially you can allow any Solidity dev to copy paste their whole code base and deploy to your chain without any change. So that's Type 2. That's what Scroll, Polygon, Kakarot are all aiming for, which is a sweet spot where you have maximum compatibility with the EVM, but you don't say like have prohibitively high proving costs. And Type 1 is a bit different. On top of having like bytecode equivalence and full compatibility with the existing code bases, you add kind of infrastructure compatibility. So compatibility with all the nodes, all the infra, and kind of things that devs don't usually have to touch. And this is not really useful for a roll-up, as far as I'm concerned, because it's very expensive to run. Like the proof around those are very expensive. But if you try to kind of see a zkEVM as another thing, as just a roll-up, like what do you do with a zkEVM? You can either treat it as a roll-up, and then the whole point of the zkEVM is to like prove transaction, and proven transactions are cheaper to verify than normal transactions. So we kind of use the zk technology of the zkEVM to lower costs of the EVM. The second way you can use zkEVMs is to have Type 1 zkEVMs and use them as clients for layer 1. So I think it's not so much as if it's very long to do for us. It's not very long. We just have to do a couple of things, but it's not very long. It's like 6 months of research, applied research. The real problem is that it's prohibitively expensive to reach type 1. Like from type 2 to type 1 is very expensive for users, but also for infra players, for everyone. So I think the way we see it is we might try to do it just as a research project, but we won't put it in prod, or we will work closely with the Ethereum Foundation to kind of find a way to make being type 1 cheaper. TLDR is you would probably want Ethereum to change its hash function from Ketchak to like Pedersen or Poseidon, which in technical terms mean you want Ethereum to change its hash function to a ZK friendly, like very cheap hash function. And if you do that, then you can reach type 1 quite like in 6 months and have it very, very cheap. So it remains to be seen. My 2 cents about it is in 5 years, we'll probably have it. And then like layer one execution clients will be able to be zkEVMs. And it remains to be explored what it means for the whole ecosystem. So if you want to read more about it, Vitalik made some blog posts and even just articles from the Ethereum Foundation about the roadmap, like The Verge and stateless clients more precisely. So if you want to read about it, you may do so. Like single slot finality is one of the subjects. So essentially, it's about bringing zero-knowledge proofs to L1 directly and having really lower cost, but directly on L1 without rollups. So I think this is a very long shot, but it's deserving of the research. It's deserving of the funds, and later on, this might come in very handy for us. So we're keeping an eye on it. We're developing to reach that goal. So we always have that goal in mind. But say for the next 2 years, we will not be like putting this in prod.
I see. Really looking forward, to achieving the zkEVM one, status. And to sum it up, so if I understood well, a zkEVM of the first type, of type 1, so can verify an environment that looks exactly like Ethereum,
Yes,
and
exactly.
even the Ethereum chain itself. Then it can scale the Ethereum L1 and not just the rollups, and maximally easy for rollups because you can share infrastructure, and it takes a very long time to generate proofs. I think that's a concept. I was reading a kind of graphic from an article explaining the different types of zkEVM. Is it true that like as a zk type 1 EVM, it could take a bit longer to generate proofs?
Yeah, I think so. I think it comes down to some things. One of them being, if you're type 1, you must use the hash function of Ethereum everywhere, notably to generate state tree and so on. And Ethereum, the function for hash in Ethereum is Ketchak. And yeah, essentially the core idea is the more Ketchak you have inside a block, like inside a proof, the more expensive the proof is. Because it's very annoying to prove Ketchak because there's a lot of operations that are not ZK friendly. So yeah, I think you summed it up well. The more Ethereum like you are, the more expensive and the longer, which is kind of like the same thing. And yeah, and it all boils down to Ketchak and then some annoying operations.
I can imagine, yeah. Obviously, in order to be that kind of zkEVM, in order to be a zkEVM type 1, obviously you need to make some sacrifices in scalability, right? Because you're very attached to the status of the L1 as well. And anyway, thanks a lot to you for explaining to us all the different types of zkEVM. And we really hope that Kakarot will become a zkEVM type 1 as soon as possible. And we also saw that the Kakarot zkEVM project recently raised its pre-seed round with some very known Web3 companies and angel investors, among them also Vitalik as well. And could you tell us a bit more about this round and how it is going to help you turn your visions into reality? And I also suppose that some of these funds will be used to better approach the upcoming Quantum Leap Starknet version, so the version 0.12.0, and the transition towards Cairo 1.0 as Regenesis is coming closer. So could you also finish this last answer by covering a bit more on the Kakarot's approach to such crucial upcoming events for the Starknet scaling solution?
Yeah, so we raised some money essentially to move to a more professional building, where the first 6 months of the life of Kakarot, we were like, I would say, like having a bottom-up approach with funds from Olidas and the Starknet Foundation, and we've always had this open source vibe and DNA. So I think it's nice that we keep it. But essentially, what we're trying to do is have some funds to have a permanent full-time core team of devs. So we're going to spend our money on that and kind of try to build the most production-ready product we can. And that is also by keeping the open source DNA. So we'll also use some of the funds to just continue funding open source. So funding Madara, but funding Kakarot as well. For any open source contributor who would want to join, the team is always open. So for that as well. And very soon we're going to start our Cairo 1 migration. So I would say during August, we will try to focus our efforts on it when Cairo 1 becomes stable. And by September-ish, we should have finished, hopefully. So that's kind of one. And the second one is, as soon as we can, we would want to try to deploy Kakarot to at least Starknet testnet v0.12 and run lots of cool benchmarks on, one, the TPS that Kakarot can reach on like a Starknet mainnet by doing benchmarks on testnet, right? And then the second is sync with the prover team from Starkware and do lots of also benchmark on the proving side of Kakarot when VO 0.12 is on. So I think this is the main objectives of the summer. Migration to KO1 and then testing on testnet the Kakarot, the latest Kakarot version, and syncing with the prover team to draw conclusions on proving speed and so on.
Very well, Elias. Can't wait to see the Kakarot zkEVM launching on testnet and eventually on mainnet as well. And seeing that we went down the questions pretty fast. So if you don't mind, I can add one on my own. And then in the meanwhile, if there's somebody from the audience who would like to ask Elias for a question, please send me the permission to speak, and I will grant it to you. So do that in the coming minute. And in the meanwhile, I'll ask Elias, the Starknet CC is approaching, the Ethereum CC is approaching, and there will also be, a Lambda ZK week, which is focusing on about experimentations that are related to ZK tech. And I wanted to know if there's a category a category of this hackathon week where the zkEVM will play a role. Is there something planned for that week, and also maybe for during the ETH Global Hackathon?
Good question, actually. I mean, you mentioned Starknet CC and SCC, so come chat with us. We'll be at both events, and we have talks at these events. But then we'll also participate to the Zero Knowledge, the Lambda Zero Knowledge hackathon. I think we'll do some low-level ZK stuff, so we might not have a Kakarot track inside the hackathon, mainly because Kakarot is a zkEVM, but its main purpose is to allow people to develop in Solidity and use Kakarot as if they were using Ethereum L1 or Polygon POS or just any EVM chain. So the idea behind the zkEVM, I guess, is to abstract away the ZK part. So all in all, we probably we won't have a very applied zero knowledge, applied research theme for the hackathon. We might, if we have a track, if someone wants to hack at Kakarot and maybe find some really cool use cases for, I don't know, a plugin for Kakarot or really deep infra stuff that they want to complete Kakarot with, like a precompile, that could be really fun. So I'll think about it. But it's definitely going to be something quite low level, but I think it's not such a bad idea. So maybe we could do it.
I see. Very, very good. And so therefore, there won't be a main category about Kakarot, but there will be for sure some experiments and some playing with it, and really looking forward for what will come out of it. And obviously, I can't wait also to meet you in Paris next month. And I see that there are no questions so far. So, I mean, it's been a very fast session, but I think we managed to cover a lot of topics, and we managed also to explain the Kakarot zkEVM very well, along with all the phases that are going to be rolled down in the coming months. And having said that, I would like to thank you so much for coming today at the Star Cafe, Elias. And obviously, I wish you all the best to you and also to Danilo, to all the contributors working on Kakarot. Maybe before saying goodbye to you, we can remind anybody who could be interested in giving a deeper look on Kakarot to go to the kakarot.org website, and from there you will be redirected to the Twitter page, to the GitHub repo, and also to the playground section. And yeah, having said that, thanks a lot, Elias.
Thank you so much for your time and inviting me.
It's been a pleasure, and yeah, see you in Paris. And also, I would love to thank all the guests. I see Harsh, Exodus, the Starknet official page. Shout out to them for all the great contents they are putting out, and also to Nadai, a very active contributor for the Spanish-speaking community. Thanks to Kodawari, to Ancom, to Shancha, to Motonori, to Ramsin, to Endrit. To Blades, and to all the others listeners who will also listen to us in a replay. And having said that, thanks a lot to Elias. Thanks a lot to all the listeners. See you on Wednesday for another amazing Star Cafe session where we'll speak with Terrence from Cartridge about Dojo and Katana. So two very important gaming-related infrastructure that are building on Starknet. So very excited for the next episode. And yeah, see you there. And remember sharing the Starknet vibe. And see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. I see that I made a mistake. It was the Starknet Africa account. Sorry, guys, if I mistook you. And yeah, obviously you're also doing a great job in Africa. There's also, if I remember well, there's going to be your Starknet meetup in Congo in 2 days on the 28th. Do I remember well? And yeah, having said that, thanks a lot, guys, from Starknet Africa, and sorry for the mistake. And yeah. Having said that, guys, see you on Wednesday for the next Star Cafe. Bye.